Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at onpurposely.com.
Hi, it's Meg. And because this is a family-friendly podcast, I want to take just a moment to let you know this story contains some sensitive content that might not be safe for young ears. If you have young kids listening, please take note and consider putting in earbuds.
And so I went to the altar and I put Ethan on the altar. And I was like, Lord, I don't know how you ever did this and sacrificed your son, but I can't do this. I was just on that altar crying out for my baby. I was like, Lord, please, I love him so much. I love him so much. I don't know what to do.
And now for the next episode of Letters from Home, sending encouragement to your doorstep by capturing the heartbeat of God's people, one story at a time.
In marriage, two become one, but that is definitely a process. Someone call that process from me to we. Today's guest will share her me to we journey of love. You'll hear how a painful dating experience affected her, how a miracle shaped her, and how the love for her Savior has enabled her to live and lay her life and loved ones at the altar. Here is the everyday extraordinary Rhonda Hollins. And in the PS, her husband Conell will join us. The Lord has used them to help hundreds of couples with their marriages, and you get to see where it all started out. Rhonda Hollins, I am so happy to have you on the podcast today. I love seeing how God's using you in your family, in your marriage, and in other marriages for conferences. And now you're writing books and workbooks and all these things while raising your beautiful family. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. And you know, I look up to you so much. I thank God for giving me great examples in parenting and motherhood, but most of all, just being a woman of God, and also your marriage, which you also have a wonderful marriage and children. And I just really strive for that. And I thank God for your example. I really do.
Amen. Thank you so much. All the married people out there, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of blessing.
Yes, it's a blessing.
So worth it. What was it like to be in your home growing up, Rhonda? Can you bring us into your home and how things started out for you?
Yeah. My mother and father, they've been married at this point almost 50 years.
Wow.
And when we were growing up, my parents were in ministry and they were in the marriage and family ministry, but they focused on the family side of it more. And so I would watch my parents labor in love with different families and just giving them feedback. And as you're growing up, you don't always recognize that, oh, this is a good thing. I just was used to it. It was just part of my life. And I think at one point, I even took it for granted a little bit too, because I was just like, well, we're always in church, you know? Like I was like, we're always here. And so what else is out there in the world? But now I thank God for that. Oh my God, now that's a whole nother story in itself. But I just remember just growing up in ministry and us having so much fun. It's myself, my sister, and my brother, and I'm the oldest of three. And so my mother always told us, you know, or trained us, I would say, as to how to walk alone. And when it's time for you to walk alone, just know you always have your family, you know, that you always have your mom, you got your dad, you got your sister and your brother. And so they were my best friends growing up, and they still are. We grew up in South Holland, Illinois. We just were pretty much preacher kids, is what everybody would say. Here goes a PK kid. We were that. So
I know growing up, and you know, my kids have been raised in a Christian home, and there has to come a point where you give your life to Christ and that He becomes yours. What did that look like for you?
It happened when I was 6 years old on my golden birthday in May. So I was born May 6th, and I remember it was no longer my parents telling me about it. I remember asking the Lord. And I know it may sound unbelievable, but I just remember asking Him, I said, Lord, I want to know You for myself. And I felt like I heard Him, like I felt this calm that came over me. And it was this warmth. And I just felt so confident in that moment. And I was just like, Mommy, I want to get baptized. And so my mom was like, you want to get baptized? Oh my God, yes. Okay, yes. And I remember they made such a big deal about it. And it was a big deal. But I just remember thinking, I'm going to have time with him. I'm going to get to know him. And I remember when I went to go get baptized, I felt like I was under there forever, but that I could breathe. I know it sounds weird, but I felt like I could breathe. I was just under it, and I just felt like I could hear him when I was getting baptized. And after I came out, I just felt a connection where I just knew I was going to be taken care of. I knew that he loved me. And I always think of now, I would say now I think of this. It's this book, it's written by Francis Chan called Crazy Love.
Yes.
I love that book. I love it. And it's a part in the book where it talks about his natural father. The way that he perceived his natural father was the way he started to perceive the Lord. And it wasn't in the best situation in the way that he perceived his dad. But I had an incredibly close relationship with my dad, my earthly father. I was real close with him. I'm definitely a daddy's girl. We had T-shirts. My shirt said daddy's girl, and my dad's shirt said, who's your daddy? so that's just how close we were. So, and so when I would think of knowing the Lord, I would think of him in the same way. I'm the protector, a good listener, loving. And I felt like when I got baptized that day, I felt like I got that. I felt like I got a greater sense of what that was.
How encouraging and how rare is that to hear the Lord clearly saved you at age 6, and that was the start of something beautiful. Did you hit any bumps ever, the teen years?
Oh my goodness, yes. I know my mother, she probably couldn't stand me at 13. I think it's something that happens right there at that age.
Yeah.
You don't know who you are, and then all of a sudden your mother becomes the enemy, And so I remember having a journal and writing how angry I was with my mother in there. And I wanted to leave and sneak out the house. I was just trying to do so many different things because I was rebelling because I don't think it was the right reason. It was just a reason. It's just I felt we were so confined only, to the church, and I wanted to see everything else, but they were protecting me. You don't know that at 13. And so the person that I felt was keeping me from my fun was my mom when she was really just trying to protect me. I don't know why I feel compelled to say this. So I remember my mother was telling me about really protecting my atmosphere and making sure that I don't entertain every spirit. I remember her saying this to me, and I just was thinking, oh, this is super religious. I don't know why that she thinks this way and feels this way. And so I just went ahead and at this point I had to been about 19 or 20. I think I was 19 or 20. And I was going to college in Chicago. I didn't want to go far at the time. I wanted to still be around my friends and everything. And I wasn't listening. They were telling me, go out and experience things. So I go out and I'm going to the city, and the city of Chicago is not the safest place whatsoever. I mean, it's definitely on the news, but it's not all bad, but there are areas you just shouldn't go. And I took it upon myself to still go out with friends. And so we went to an event, and it was a young man there, and he and I exchanged numbers. And I'm thinking, he's a nice looking guy and everything will be fine. So I come back and I tell my mom about it. And I was like, hey, I met this guy and everything. And she was just like, make sure you guys go in separate cars. You don't know this person, get to know them first, and things always look good on the outside, not necessarily on the inside.
Wisdom.
And so, yeah, that was great knowledge. And I said, okay. And so for a while, I actually didn't talk to him for a long time. I was just going through school, trying to get my studies. So then the young man reaches out to me and asks, if he could take me out on a date. And I remember I was going to tell my mom about it, but I was angry with her for something. I don't know what it was I was angry about. And I didn't run it past her like I normally do. And even to this day, I still run things past her. But this time I didn't. I was getting ready. I told him, I said, well, yeah, I'll meet you. And then he said, well, I'll come pick you up. So he comes to pick me up, and we go out on the date and everything. And then afterwards, when he was supposed to drop me back off towards my car, he didn't. He wouldn't let me go back towards the car. And I remember just this fear in my chest. I was very scared, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I was trying to, at the time, everyone had pagers. I don't know. And so I tried to page one of my friends, 911, because I was nervous because he wouldn't take me, to my car. And so eventually he takes me to the car, but then he goes, oh, I left my wallet to get gas to put in this car so I can get you back and everything. So let me go get my wallet and everything. I said, well, I can give you, the money to get the gas. Let's just go. And he wouldn't listen to me. And so I was nervous. And so I'm waiting and just scared. And I say this because when we got over there, he went into the house, and then he kept trying to get me to go into the house, and I wouldn't go. So I remember he came to my side of the door, and I wouldn't open the door. He unlocks the door because he has the key.
Oh my goodness.
And he really hurts me, really hurts me. And I said, God, help me. And he stopped. Because it was at one point where he bear hugged me so hard that I felt like I could feel my ribs touch. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to breathe if he grabbed me any further. I just remember just calling out to God, and he stopped, and my friend shows up. And I know this sounds weird, but it's like I don't remember all of it because I think it was just so painful for me. But I remember my friend asking me what was wrong, and I noticed that I was bleeding on the back of my head, and I noticed that I was bleeding on my legs. And so she got me in the car and was like, we're going to call the police and everything. And I remember I had such shame because I thought to myself, did I invite that? And I was just like, it took me a long time. So it was to the point where I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to be around men at all. I didn't want men around me, period. If I saw men walking to the side of me, I would get nervous or scared. And I remember I went to tell one of my friends, not the same friend that picked me up, what happened. And I remember her saying to me, well, why would he do that? He's so handsome. He has such a good job. He has such a nice this and all of this. Why would he do that to you? He could have anybody. And
yikes.
I started thinking, everybody's going to think that.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Rhonda.
I didn't trust for a very long time.
Were you ever able to share that with your mom, or were you still too full of shame? Which I'm sorry you felt shame for that.
I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell my mother because I felt, this is how the enemy works, is he'll make you feel that you're wrong for I didn't communicate with my mom like I normally would have. If I had to talk to her, maybe that wouldn't have happened. And I started to trick myself and said it was my fault that I asked for it. And so I didn't say anything. And then, in fact, I didn't want anyone to know because I didn't want to be labeled, you know how it is sometimes, especially as a woman. And then you add another layer, sometimes as a woman of color. Sometimes you're looked at as being, there are stereotypes that you're promiscuous, or that you're that those are the things that you have a lascivious nature. And I didn't want that. And my parents were in ministry. I didn't want other people to talk about my mom and my dad as though they didn't protect me, when I know that they did. I felt I didn't protect them because I didn't listen. So it took me a long time to say something to my mom. And the reason why I even said something to my mom is because she was like, well, Rhonda, she wanted to go somewhere with me. And I saw some men walking. And so I just would always go dark and assume it was going to be something bad. So she was just like, she looked at me and she said, what happened? What happened? And I said, what? Nothing happened. And I think either 4 years had passed at this point. And I was like, nothing happened. And she said, no, something happened. And I remember her holding me on my shoulders and turning me towards her. And she said, what is it? Say it all. No judgment. What's wrong? And I felt like I melted in her arms. Like, I just cried. I cried until I had no sound. I never cried that hard in my life. And then I told her everything. And so she held me and she rocked me. Then after that, she was like, where's he at? So she was trying to find him. And I was just like, no, I don't want you to go to jail. I said, I don't want that. I don't want any of that. And so it took a long time. And so I remember I went to pray, and I went with my dad and my mom before we went with the pastors, and so that they could pray for me, and so I could get guidance, and so I could get counseling, and to get through things. And I remember that it's not something that you're ever going to 100% be over. Yeah. But I also realized that that this is something that happened to me. I'm not something that I am. And thank Absolutely. God for people that will allow you to speak and get those things off your chest. And so I started feeling better right around, I was between the ages of 26 to 27. I started feeling really good about myself. And I started working and doing things with my career and moving forward career-wise. And I started working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Nice. And I was moving up the ranks there. I run into a gentleman by the name of Conell Hollins that is there. And I met him right after that. And he was such a gentleman. I remember I didn't want to go out and date at all. I was still very protective. I didn't want to go out with anyone. And if I had not met him in work, I don't think that we would have ever talked, and he, we actually didn't like each other when we first met. And we were fighting with one another. And he was just like, man, I don't know, whoever marries that girl, he said, I'm gonna pray for him because she is a load of work. And I started, and now I laugh about that all the time. You were praying for you, buddy. And so, but I remember what was the turning point that made he and I talk more. We were talking, we were at a work conference together, and I remember I was standing up, trying to find a seat. There was no seats in the restaurant. And I remember he went and got a chair for me, and he said, here, you could sit here. And he stood the whole time while I had the chair. And I was just like, well, that was very nice. And I said, well, and I remember I was being like, well, I'm not sure, what's the other motive, to this. And so that was the first thing. Then I had a lunch ticket or voucher that they gave you when you were at the conference. I lost my voucher. And so he came to me and gave me his voucher. And he said, hey, you can have it. I've already eaten and things like that. But he actually hadn't eaten. He just gave up his voucher for me, and I heard his stomach growling. And then I said, "Are you hungry? Are you hungry?" And he goes, "No." And I was just like, I said, you can have the other half. And so we ate the sandwich and we were talking, and there was another. Then he was like, "Hey, do you want to go out on a date?" And I was nervous, so I stood him up on the date. And I know now it was just because other things I was feeling, triggered. And so I was like, no. And I stood him up a total of 5 times. And he kept on just saying, I'm going to take you out. He said, what would make you more comfortable? And I said, well, maybe I'll drive and I'll meet you. And so we met and we sat and we talked, and we ended up talking for hours and hours. And I just really thought the conversation was so amazing. But I still, I was like, I don't know. And so then he said, well, let's, what would you like to do? I said, I'd like to go dancing. So he took me dancing, and we went dancing. And then he said, well, if you want, we can go to movies on another day. And then we went to the movies. And what I liked is when we were watching the movie, I ended up falling asleep on his shoulder, which is unusual for me and everything. And I fell asleep on his shoulder. And I remember he lifted me up really nicely, tapped me on the shoulder. And then he said, I just want to make sure it's okay. I didn't want to, touch you, or anything. And I just thought, like, he was just such a gentleman. And even on our wedding night, if I can say this, it was the fact that he asked me for permission. He was like, I just want your permission. And I was just so different experience.
It's like he was winning your trust too. And part of healing that you didn't know, what something different was like.
No. And it was just a completely different perspective. And I think about it all the time. It's just so funny that my God gave me not only a wonderful husband, but he gave me 3 boys. Yeah. He wanted to make sure that I loved men afterwards. And I do. I look at them and I just see these wonderful little human beings, and I just see how much they love the Lord, and I see how much God loved them and loves them, and I just say, this is what a real man of God looks like.
Absolutely. So it sounds like as you started your relationship out with Conell and then getting married, he was winning your trust, and the Lord was healing some of those broken places as you just learned to open up more. How did marriage change you, and what did those first several years look like?
So I would say how it's still changing me. I still think it's, we're getting to know each other every day. Conell and I both always say this, that we're getting our PhD in one another. Like I'm going for the next degree. We got my master's degree now, working towards, and because we want to get to know one another. And still, you never know every aspect of someone, but over time it comes out. But I will say that initially I was extremely independent, and it was very hard for me to yield in ways. It was very, very difficult for me. I remember when it was time for us to merge our finances, that was hard for me, because I was just like, well, why? You do your thing and I'll do my thing, and then we're married, and I just thought it was that simple. And I remember I had my own place, and my dad, he gave me such great advice. My dad was like, why don't you all go get something together on your, as your own, that way it's no remnants of your old place. It's no remnants of his place, but you just get something together, build together, And he's like, that way no one can say, that's my spot. That's my spot. Right. and that was such great advice that my daddy gave me. And I said, okay, all right, let's go get this house. But I still try to section off and make things just mine. I was, well, that's mine. This is mine. And I was just trying to do all these things in a me type of, standpoint. And so it was really very, I would say that first year was difficult.
I know you have 3 precious sons. So what was it like when the Lord brought kids into the picture?
I think that so let me give you some context. So it may seem like it was a whole lot. So when we got married, and when we got married in September, And when we got married in September, Conell's dad was very, very ill during that time. And so he had leukemia, which we later found out. And so he was too ill to make the trip to come to the wedding.
Oh.
But we had went to go see him like just the week before. And I had said to Conell, because I was having this feeling in my spirit, like he wasn't going to make it. I didn't know how long, but I just felt like it was close, you know? I said to Conell, I was like, hey, are you sure? Do you want to go on our honeymoon? Because when I look at everything with your dad, it just, I don't want to speak negative. You know, I'm just saying, I want you to spend as much time with him as possible, is how I put it. And he was just like, no, my dad wants me to go for my honeymoon. He doesn't want me to be sitting out here. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. He's been getting better, because he was sick for a while, and then all of a sudden he gotten better. But it just still felt like it was like better, like he was making peace with things, you know, before. So we go on our honeymoon and we go to Jamaica, and we had a ball while we were out there. I had so much fun, and then we were planning and talking about our lives. And I remember just before we were about to leave, Conell in front of me, I just watched, he just got so sad. And I said, what's wrong? And I said, are you okay? He said, I feel so sad. And I remember I was rubbing his head, and I said, well, you want to go check on your dad and everything? He said, yeah, let's check on my dad. And so we were going to go check on his dad. He's like, no, I don't want to call yet. Let's go and have something to eat. And then I said, no, just go ahead, give him a call. He said, no, let's go get something to eat.
He knew he had that check in his spirit.
Yeah, he knew, he felt it. And when I go back and think of it, I know he knew it, but he didn't know how to articulate it. And so we went and got something. We were getting ready to get transported to the airport from the resort. And he calls, and I watch him on the phone, and he just leans on the pillar that was right next to where we were. And I just knew something was different in it. And I just walked up, and I remember hugging him from behind, and he just cried so hard, so deeply. And so it was just hard, because, you know, we had
on your honeymoon. Wow.
Yeah, the honeymoon, and we were at this high, and then there was this low, and it wasn't just a low. It's it's a parent, and him and his daddy. He was just so close with his dad, and I remember his dad said to me just beforehand, and it was a conversation that he and I only had, and I shared it with Conell as we were going back, and I said, your dad told me to look out for you and to watch you. And he was like, my son is supposed to be in ministry. He said, I don't know that I've always showed him the right way, but if you can you help him through it? And I said, yes, sir. But you're going to be able to help him too. So and he was just like, yeah, I think my time is going to conclude. And so I was just like, well, don't speak like that. And I remember telling him that. He said, you're a good lady for him, Rhonda. You're a good lady for him. And I was like, yeah. He said, he's a good guy for you. And he said, I didn't always raise him right. His mama did that. And then we laughed. And I remember we just had a really good conversation. And I told Conell that, and Conell cried. And we, and then I found myself just being launched into, because they were so all heartbroken, of course. And so I was making the arrangements for the funeral, and, making sure he had time off. And it was a lot. And, all of his family members were like, there were some family members, they were like, well, you don't let him see you cry. You have to stay strong. But it was hard. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to be a wife, let alone, carry him through. But I was trying my very best. I just knew I loved him, So we went through that, and Conell was like, I'm just so sad. And I was just like, okay. I said, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And so, he was starting to get better and things like that. And then, 2 months later, we found out I was pregnant. I remember him leaning on my stomach, and he just cried so hard. And he was just like, my dad's never going to meet him. And he was like, he said, oh my God, I just thought about this. He said, my dad's never going to meet any children we have. And I said, how do you know that in heaven they didn't pass one another by? You know?
Aw.
And I said, how do you know that? Not know. Oh, you got me all in tears over here, Meg. You got me. Wow.
Well, you got me too. I always keep clean. I've got Kleenex. So.
This is one of these great conversations you need to have. So, we were excited for the pregnancy, and Conell always wanted to name Ethan, and so now his middle name is is Conell, because Conell is named after his dad. Because Conell always said that everyone gets his name wrong. Even my mom did for the longest. She would call him Cunningham. I don't know how that goes along with anything, but everybody would call him Cornell, Cordell, everything but Conell, right? And so he said, I don't want my son to go through that. I want his name to be Ethan. And then I want his middle name to be my dad, like Conell, so that the name will still go on. And I said, absolutely. I said, whatever you want. And so we were just so excited. And then just to know that he was a boy, it was just it felt like my husband just felt like, this is just God allowing that legacy to continue.
Amen.
And when Ethan came out and we saw him, he looks like my father-in-law. Like they look very similar. It's, complexion, everything. They look very similar. And I was just like, wow, and it brought such a healing to the family. I felt like it brought everyone came to his baby shower. I've never had a baby shower with that many people there, but there were so many people there. And Conell's father had left, and it was so funny. It was like just before he went back and changed his will, his last will and testament, and he put Conell, but he put me on there, and he said, and their future children. And it was just it was beautiful, because it was such a conscious decision to do that. And I remember we had all these different we had bills to pay from our wedding and things like that. And when he left us that money, we were able to pay everything off. And I was extremely happy about that. We paid everything off, but we didn't have a lot still afterwards, because, we had a lot of bills, and we probably went too far on the wedding in general. But, we took care of all those different things. And I would just say, like, this is probably, if I may say, I would say, where we had another challenge, as being married, was it was 2 months after Ethan was born, and I was holding Ethan, and my baby just like slumped into my arms, and I could tell he wasn't breathing right. Oh. Yes, something was wrong. And so I remember I rubbed his chest, and he came to, but his coloring was off. And so Conell was out of town for work, and I had went to the doctor's office, and I went to the pediatrician. We didn't have a strong relationship because this is my first baby. And so I go in, and I tell the pediatrician, like, hey, something isn't right. He's not breathing right. And he was like, oh, that happens with, babies, don't worry about it. Just let him sleep it off. And, he's exhausted from the travel of the wound. I said, no, something's not right. I said, I need someone to look at him. And he was like, no, I don't have time. I have a full day today. And I said, well, can you refer me to another doctor? He said, no, I don't have time. If you think it's something wrong, come back tomorrow. I said, I'm not leaving. And so I said, I'm going to sit over here, and when you get a moment, we're going to see the baby. And he said, you got to understand you're a new mom. And I said, but you know what? God made me his mom for a reason. Yeah. So I know something isn't right. And so I sat over there, and I was just rocking him. And I was there for maybe 4.5 hours. And then he came out, and it was another doctor that was coming to help that day. His name is Dr. Unger, and I will never forget. And he said, well, if you don't mind, can I look, at him, and we'll go from there, because I don't want you to sit out here and wait. And I said, yes. And I would love that.
Yeah, 4 hours
So
later. Yes, please.
Yes, yes, it was wrong. And he looked and he said, well, they did a X-ray, they did a MRI. And then I remember him looking at his X-rays and he was going back and forth. Then he put the stethoscope back on him again. And I knew something wasn't right because he wasn't saying anything, but he kept on checking and he would listen. Then he said, can I listen to your heart? And then he went to listen to my heart. Then he went back and forth and he just went back and forth. And he said, I want you to go. There's another doctor I'm going to call right now. He's a specialist cardiovascular. I'm hearing a clicking. When I'm hearing your son, and he said, and you're not supposed to hear that. He said, but I'm not an expert and I know someone who is. And his name is Dr. Sunthorn. And so I want you to go there. And I said, okay, I don't want to wait a day. I want to go now. He said, no, he's waiting for you. You can go right over and he's waiting. And I said, thank you so much. And so I go over there and they do all the procedures looking at him. And he goes to say to me, he said, well, I want to explain to you the heart. And he starts breaking everything down to me on the heart wise. And my heart started beating because as he's explaining what it is, I'm recognizing that the severity of it. He explained everything very well. And he had what's called pulmonary stenosis. And it's a narrowing of the pulmonary valve that goes to, that oxygenates the blood that goes to the lungs, which helps you breathe, which helps your lungs contract. So basically, he wasn't getting enough oxygen in order to breathe. His heart wasn't able to pump it.
Were you able to talk to Conell on your way over to the other doctor?
When I was leaving there, I called him and he left his meeting and I was like, emergency. And I told him and he said, what? And then he just started crying and then I'm crying. And then I said, I said, I know what I'm going to do. I know what exactly I'm going to do. And so I went right to my church and church wasn't open because I think this was a Thursday. And I went in there and I called my pastor. His name is Pastor Ponder. I called him and I said, I was telling him everything was happening. And I said, I just got to get to the altar. And so I went to the altar and I put Ethan on the altar. And I was like, Lord, I don't know how you ever did this and sacrificed your son, but I can't do this. I need you. And it was the same way I've called him before. And I was just on that altar crying out for my baby. I was like, Lord, please, I love him so much. I love him so much. I don't know what to do. And then I started like, what did I do wrong? I was thinking like, did I eat the wrong food? I was just thinking all these things like, what did I do? What did I do? How can I, and I went back into a blame mode of myself. And I remember my pastor came to me, he said, hey, why are you so hard on yourself? Yeah. He was like, why do you think that God is that way? Why do you think that he's going to believe he wants the worst for you? He wants the best for you. He said, you putting this on the altar? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, leave it there. And I said, but I don't know what to do. He said, leave your cares, everything, leave it here. Give it to him. He said, don't go back and get it, Rhonda. And he said, and leave it. And I was just like, okay. And Conell flew back. He flew back, emergency flyback. His company flew him back right away. We needed to decide what was going to happen for Ethan. And we go to the hospital out there, the pediatric hospital out there for cardiovascular surgery. And they said, well, we're going to try and, maybe do a balloon stent through his leg first to maybe balloon open the valve because since it was narrow and they were hoping they could open it and stretch it. Well, it was just too thick. It couldn't get through. And so that procedure at the time cost $22,000. And the insurance company wouldn't agree to it at first. They were saying, well, we don't know, and then also it didn't work. So since it didn't work, they were basically saying we were going to have to pay for it. And we didn't have $22,000. We had literally in our account $212. I will never forget. And we had $212 in our account. And I said, well, that's not even going to cover his medicine. And so it still needed to be done. And so I was praying, and I was like, Lord, I don't know what to do. And I heard in my spirit, and I don't know what everyone else's relationship is with the Lord, but like I'll hear him clearly say something, or it'll sound like my voice, or it'll sound like his voice, but sounds really calming. And it was just like, check into the doctors, and I said, checking the doctors, So I start looking at all the different doctors that were out there. And I found this one doctor that specializes in pulmonary stenosis. And I saw his name, and I felt like I should just call him, so called. And they were like, well, he's in surgery right now. And I said, oh, so does he work out of there? And they said he works out of here, and he also works out they said the southeast. And I said, okay. So I drove with Ethan, me and Conell and the baby, and we drive up there. And we wait in the waiting room, and the receptionist said he can't see anyone without an appointment. And I said, I have to meet him. I just feel that if he knew what was going on, he would care. And I really would like to wait. Mm-hmm. And so she said, okay, you're going to be waiting a long time. I said, this is worth it. I'll wait. And so I waited, and I sat there, and so I waited, and then she said, don't sit, stand, because he moves real quick. And I said, okay. So I stood up, and I'm waiting, and then he comes through the door, and I was like, doctor? And then he said, yes. And I said, I really want to talk to you about my son, Ethan. He needs surgery. You're the person that's supposed to do it. I feel it in my heart. God told me you should do it. And I really want it. And he said, wait a minute, what? And everything. And he was like, wait a minute, what? When you're saying a lot. And I said, let me show you his record. And I was talking super fast. I didn't know really what to do. And I said, here's my son's records and everything. And he said, wait a minute, are you a patient? I said, we will be, like that. And then he said, okay. And he was like, all right. So he opens it up, and he looks, and he was like, wait a minute, how old is he? And then I told him, I said, he's 2 months. He'll be 3 months, and in another, 3, weeks almost. And he was just like, oh, he's such a cute little guy and everything. He said, well, I have a lot of people on my docket. And then I stopped him again, and I said, I don't have the finances. I don't have the money, and I will work every day if you'll just take care of him. If you'll just make sure that he gets what he needs. I don't care how long I got to work. I don't care what you need me to do. If you want me to, I'll pick up the trash here. I don't care. Just, if you'll just take care of him. And I said, please. And he said, you don't have to say that. You don't have to beg. You don't have to. He said, okay, hold on. And he was like, and he turns to the reception. He said, who do I have next? She said, you have another 15 minutes in between. And we turn back around, and we go into his office, and he says, okay, he said, there's different parts where his heart needs to be patched. I want you to understand what happens. He doesn't have what's called pericardium around his heart. So based on this last x-ray, you need pericardium. It's a heart casing around the heart. And we would need that to patch the parts that are the holes that he's having, from the stent. And I said, wait a minute, there was holes that were created, and I didn't even know this. And I said,
oh my goodness.
So he said, yes, they created, when they tried to, it didn't work. And so it stretched and it created a hole as well. So he has some leakage there.
Oh my goodness.
He said, that can be fixed. He said, but I don't want you to focus on that. Let's focus on what we're going to do to get Ethan better. Okay, Mom. And he kept calling me Mom, to calm me, and I said, okay. And then he said, well, I think we need to move on this quickly and everything. He said, and I want you to know that there's a possibility that we may have to put a prosthetic piece in there. And if so, we may have to, revisit additional surgeries because the prosthetic piece will not grow with him. So we'll have to replace it. I'm just letting you know that, it's a possibility that quality of life may not be there. And I said, I just don't believe that, but you do your best. And then I'm going to pray and we're going to get our best, going. And then he was just like, he said, he goes, I love when people have such faith, their kids do so well when they have faith, but I could tell he was not an active belief, of the Lord. I could sense it, but it didn't matter. I told him I had enough belief for both of us. We would get it done.
Amen.
And so then Conell was like, what do you need us to do? And he said, I know my wife is the main one talking, but what else do you need us to do? What do you want us to learn? What could we study? So that we can make sure that we're as proficient as possible. And he said, you just be here. You hold up mom and mom holds up dad, and it's going to work out. Right. And we said, okay. So he went in, his surgery was scheduled from 2 weeks from there. And it was just before he was going to become 3 months. And so we go in for the surgery, and the surgery was expected to be 6 hours. And it ended up being 4 hours. And so we were sitting there, and that was the hardest amount of time in my life. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that they literally bypass the heart. All the organs are put on machines, and they open up, the chest cavity of your child, and they stop the heart while they do this. And so I didn't recognize all of this. And so I was just a nervous wreck, And I remember going into the chaplain area to pray again and just saying, Lord, just save my baby, heal him. I know all will be well. I just want to say it again, and prayed. And so we came out, and, the doctor said, okay, so we're going to go and take a look at him. And he was like, but what I will say is this, Mom, I was looking at the x-ray earlier. And when I looked at the x-ray earlier, I know I shared with you that there was no pericardium, around his heart. And I said, yeah, no, I remember. He said, well, when we opened, his chest cavity, there was an abundance of pericardium around his heart. He said, and I know it's like, look at this x-ray. It's not on here, but it was there in my eyes. He said, I don't understand how the x-ray didn't pick it up. He said, and then when we did the x-ray after, we could see it. And he's like, so he said, it's just, and I said, a miracle. And then he said, it's just, I'm not used to seeing. I said, a miracle. And I just started screaming, and I fell on the ground. Me and Conell were on the ground crying. We were just so happy. And he said, I don't often say this, but he's not going to need another surgery. He said he's not. He said, I'm just very happy, and it went very, very well, Mom. You'll be excited. And he said, I also got a plastic surgeon in there. And so he won't have the normal, the scars where it's, you'll see a scar on each side of the incision. There was none of that. It looks like almost like a thin little line,
Wow.
like almost like he scratched himself. It's so thin. And I just said, oh my God. I was like, thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. And so he was like, yeah. And he was like, he said, so I want you come in my office and everything. And I said, I gotta start. I had to make a joke. And I said, I gotta start cleaning trash that soon. And he started laughing. I said, is the bill that big? And I said, I don't care. I'm just so happy. He's like, okay. And so, we laughed about it, and Conell and I laughed. And then we get a call when we took Ethan home for that week, and we get a call from the same receptionist. And she said, hey, Rhonda, I need you to call because a part of your insurance may cover part of the surgery. And so, maybe something, work from there. And he's like, and she said, so just give it a call. And I said, well, they told me that they wouldn't be able to cover it. She said, Rhonda, would you give them a call like that? And I said, okay.
Done. I'm doing it.
Yes. Okay. I was like, hint, okay, got it. So I call over. And then the insurance company said, well, the only thing you'll just, we don't see a fee in here. And then I said, no, well, you guys have to cover it. I want to make sure that she said, no, there's no fee in there. She said, hold please. And they had us on hold. Me and Conell were sitting there. We was like, what are they talking about? And so then they come back to the line. She's like, our doctor's name was Ilbawi. She goes, Dr. Ilbawi waived the charges for both surgeries. For the first procedure
kidding?
and the second
Wow.
procedure.
Wow.
Come on. Like, I just was like, what?
Hallelujah.
I said, what? I said, what? And they were like, all you have to do is pay for the hospital stay, and that's covered under the deductible. So it's $1,000 deductible. Did you guys want us to split up the payments? We said, yes, split up the payments.
Praise the Lord. Wow.
And so we split up the payments, and I know, I can tell you forever and a day, but then after that, I get a call from my company, and they tell me, and this was now 2 weeks later, they said, hey, we made a mistake on your pay. and we have to go back and pay you retroactively. And I said, oh, okay. For how long? They said, we went back. It's almost a year, Rhonda. Like, we've been paying you wrong. And I was like,
when does this happen, right? I mean, it's the Lord.
I said, what? Like that. And I said, are you kidding me? And then I was like, wait a minute, let me see it. And then they said, no, we really did. Like, and then they showed me. And it was literally almost $50,000. And so I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. And so then we saved and everything. And it was a supernatural covering and grace and favor. And I told you how when I hear his voice, it's this comfort that comes over my spirit and my soul that I got you. Like, I love you. I'm never going to let anything happen to you. And I was just like, you never fail me, God. And I said, I have failed me. You have never failed me. You've always been there, and you've always brought me through. You always will. And it's just like, that's why I want people to know who he is. Because if they knew him, like I know him and how others know him, I'm telling you, you would never be able to break yourself away. He's just so amazing. He's so worthy of praise. And it's not for what he does for us. It's just who he is and just how he loves and his example, his leadership as the King of Kings. I'm just in awe of who he is. I just am. I'm just in awe of who he is.
Before we seal up the envelope on this letter of encouragement, we have prepared a little treat for you that we like to call the PS, so you can see more of the heart and personality of our guest.
Here is your PS.
Are you ready for some bonus questions?
Okay, yeah.
How's Ethan's health today?
Ethan is fantastic. Like I told you, or I don't know if I even mentioned it, but Ethan was told that he wasn't going to be able to do sports. He wasn't going to be able to have quality of life. They said he wasn't going to be able to do a lot of things, and because they said he wouldn't be able to breathe or have the exertion to do so. And let me tell you, my son is in baseball, has been in baseball, has come in number 1.
Wow.
He's been the fastest runner. He would love for me to tell you about all his RBIs, right? He's an excellent swimmer. He's on track. Everything, those high level exertion sports, he comes in first. He's top of his class. He's a mathlete. I could just talk about it all day, but most thing I'm most proud of is he's a child of God. And he's gave his heart over to the Lord, and I just look at this young man, and he is in excellent health. So no, everything has been great. And Conell and I have been married 13 years. It'll be 14 years in September, on September 7th. I'm just so happy. We've been doing our ministry 13 years. They threw us right in right away, but I thank God for it.
Yeah. Say something quick, something special about each of your precious boys.
Aiden is my joy baby. Okay. So he gave me reprieve. He was the one that when I was nervous about having a child again, it was the easiest pregnancy I have ever had in my life. He by far is a party. We call him party all the time, right? Because he is happy all the time.
Aww.
He is dancing all the time, singing all the time. And so he is my happy party all the time son, but so smart, so witty.
And I know your little Avery, precious little Avery's almost 1.
Yes, he is like very calm and then extremely a laughing baby. He laughs all the time, man. Like he has the deepest laugh. I think he's going to have a deep voice like my son, Ethan. He is going to have a deep voice too, because he is a laugher. When other people are like, oh, he was crying. No, we woke up to him cracking up in the middle of the night. That's what he does. Laughing, holding his feet, laughing. So I would say he's just pure joy, pure joy.
Praise the Lord. All right, Conell, thanks for popping in. She just shared like a bunch of stuff, and we were both crying, and I'm blowing my nose. And so it's beautiful to see what the Lord's done in your life. Are you ready for some bonus questions?
Okay, Miss Vanna White, yes. Come on. I'm here for it.
Yeah. So now now we have the privilege of having Conell. And Rhonda said that, when you were dating, she rejected you 5 times, Conell. So I wondered, we know she's a gorgeous woman, but what is it that you saw in her where you continue to pursue this woman?
Meg, it's crazy that you say this. Okay, so it might have been 5 times. It might have been 2. It might have been
whatever.
3. Who really knows the number? Why do we have to put a number or a label on things?
Yeah, let's see who's right.
He doesn't want anyone to know that he took it that many times.
It's fine. I'll take an L 5 times to win at life. To win at life. No, for the simple fact, I don't know if she really explained how Florida was for us. Like, that was our ultimate first date for the free. Yeah. Like, the company took us down to Florida. It was just so amazing. And I thought that when we got back, we had such an in-depth conversation that we were on the phone for hours. And I really saw something with this young woman. And I took it to a place that I never really had taken it at that point with any other woman, from the standpoint of just being vulnerable and letting my guard down. And so I thought we were there. And I thought something like magical was taking place. We went to the how do they say, the funnest place on earth? Or what did they say?
The most magical place on earth.
We made magic in Disney and we brought it home.
Yeah, our meeting was in Disney.
Yes.
I didn't tell her that part.
Okay.
So we went down for a work conference, and that's where he gave me his lunch voucher, where he gave me, he got me a chair. He just the happiest, that's it. Yes. The happiest place on earth. That's it.
So we brought that happiest place on earth back home, and we had this great, I think it was like a week of conversation. She ghosted me, and then my little heart was broken. So I had to go find my heart. I had to go chase her down. I need to know what happened, because like I said, I was in a place of vulnerability that I hadn't been with any woman before her. And I wasn't ready to do that again for anybody else. So I was like, what went wrong? So either I'm not going to do this again, or we got to figure this out, because I really like you. And I know you like me, because you said it, or I felt it. And so, yeah, I took 5 L's, maybe 2, maybe 3.
No, it wasn't.
But
it was like 5.
No, but when the heart knows, it knows. So she was worth chasing down, right? No, she was very charismatic. I really liked her. I'm going to use the word tenacious. She's such a go-getter. I fell in love with her work ethic. That really captivated me, because, I'm so laid back and chill, that she brought it out of me. Well, hey, I just said, if you want it, go get it. I wanted her, I had to go get her. And we approach that to everything in life. She said the part where she told our boys, we don't sit back and wait for it. We build it. Just like Noah, you build your ship. So you really got to go gun ho for something that you really want.
All right. Well, I want to ask you something a little more serious. So she really went into the abusive situation that she went through before marriage. And Conell, with all that she went through, what was your perspective, and how did you win her trust?
I think the one thing that she always tells me is, we waited to marriage. And the one thing I asked before we did anything that day, I asked for her permission. I was like, is it okay that, we do this? Is it okay that we proceed? Even though we're married, I asked permission. And she told me that made her feel, that they made her so vulnerable, because no one's ever asked. Especially coming from that situation when someone just takes. For me to just ask permission, that meant the world to her, and that solidified the fact that I was the one for her. And so, no, for the most part, I was always just trying to be a gentle soul to her and treat her your mother tells you, treat a woman not so much you want to be treated, but, respect, you have to get respect to get respect, right? So I respected her as a person, a woman, as my wife, as the future mother of my children, as the person I want to be with. And I just always came from a place of I respected the fact she even told me what she went through, because some people even hold that in. And she was always been an open book with me. So I've always tried to be respectful of what she's dealt with and make sure that, I just wasn't that same person.
Amen. Well, I know that there's many listeners out there that are young men in their late 20s and 30s, and young women. What would you say to people who are wanting to get married and they've met someone and they want to pursue a relationship in a healthy way in 2022?
Okay. Well, first one, I would definitely say pray about it. Make sure they ask God, is this the one for them? And hopefully he's spoken back to them, or they saw the sign, like, this person makes me better, because that's what it has to be. Like, it can't just be somebody that you're with for the moment. This person literally has to make you better, or not complete you, though, because no one can complete you but God. But when he brings two people together, there's some work to be done. Like we tell people all the time, like, there's good work out here, and you got to get it in marriage. And there's more to be done, especially when you multiply this number. But I would definitely say that make sure they prayed about it, and just make sure they're doing it for the right reasons, obviously, and that that it's really what you want, and not something that you've been kind of finagled into, or something that you've been given an ultimatum to be in. This really has to come from a place of the heart, because if it doesn't, it'll eventually crack, and it will show. Yeah, like your true character, as far as what you want from this relationship, will show at some point if it's not really, really, really what you want.
May I add?
Please.
I also think that sometimes, and I'm speaking to men and women on this, I think that you think that it's like this one moment, like you're going to have this eureka moment, and then that's it, but it's actually not. God will give you multiple examples and ways to confirm if this person is for you. And a lot of that takes time. It's asking questions. Yes. It's having deep conversations. Yes. If you can't be your full, transparent self, if you can't say the good, the bad, and the ugly, this might not be a person for you. If you can't be who you are and be naked and not ashamed with this person, facts, that person may not be the right person for you. They could very well be a really good friend. They could very well be someone that was only meant to be in your life for a moment, but you have maybe unfortunately extended it for a lifetime. Don't make moments lifetime decisions, And we always say that with the couples, but I just don't want people to think that it's a one-time thing. Marriage is a discovery, and you should be able to ask some really deep questions, but you can't be afraid to answer them in return.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't want to be who they really are. They want to put up a facade, or as like my husband says, oh, you're being a representative of who you are. You're showing your very best. But I think marriage is when you're able to show, unfortunately, sometimes your very worst, True. Can you be you?
True. So to her point, take some form of premarital.
Absolutely.
I should have led with that. I would definitely encourage premarital because in our community, it's something that's not really put out in the forefront. But we're making it sexy now. One couple at a time. Amen. We're making it sexy. So now we're bringing it back. We're just making it sexier. But no, premarital is something we definitely recommend for any couple that's looking to get married. Just for the fact, like, if you can't ask those tough questions, let us do it for you, or let some coach or counselor do it for you. That way, you're getting the answers you need.
Yeah, and we actually say we have a lot of people that come in our class that are single. That aren't even in a relationship yet. And we actually find them to have the best results. Because now we always tell them, oh, you got the great job. And they're like, what? And it's like, you get to be selective. You can be choosy. Now you know all the parameters, and now you know what you want to go look out for. This is your best time in your season. So we have that, or we have people who are just dating. They haven't even said they want to be married, but they're just dating and they happen to be in the room. And we always tell couples, and this is what we say the first class, and you tell me if you agree or you want to chime in. Okay. But we say this all the time. We say, we're going to throw everything at you in the kitchen sink because our job is to break you up. And they'll go, what? And it was like, yeah, our job is to break you up. And they'll say, why? I say, because if you can't take this class, and Conell say, if you can't take this class, you're not ready to be married. If we can't say all these things, if you can't be you, then you're not ready. And that's okay. Okay. It's Agreed. Okay if you don't make it. We would rather you break up from someone in the dating phase than for you to get married and look at that person across the courtroom in divorce court. We would prefer that any day. So it's a win-win for us on that situation.
Oh, man.
Facts.
That's so good. Well, I mean, you can hear how much love and fire and wisdom that Conell and Rhonda have. They have a great podcast. If, wherever you're listening to Letters from Home, if you just want to look up Me to We podcast and just subscribe, so many great topics that just dive right into the real stuff of marriage. And it's been super helpful for me. And I know they've got a great book. They've got a great workbook that's going to be coming out. The how-tos to your I-dos. Who doesn't need more help with all of that. And maybe you can just give one quick teaser for your how-tos to your I-dos.
Oh, I was almost going to steal your thunder about Tuesdays, but I'll let you, because I could see his face like, you better not say that one. But I would say one that we do is called Who Has the Mic? Miscommunication is the number one cause for divorce. And we always make an unfortunate joke, but we say that's what irreconcilable differences is. It's a miscommunication. So the most of our book, as well as the workbook, have nothing but communication exercises in there. And one of them being the Who's Got the Mic is so that everyone has equal time to speak and to be heard. And whoever has it in their hands, you have 3 minutes, and it's your job to get your points out as you're speaking. And as the listener, your job is to write down the main points that you're hearing so that you can give it back to them.
Yeah, because the point of it is like the game imitating life from the standpoint of like we want you to start out fun about it for the sake of, like, if you think about it, when people are talking or trying to have a conversation, or an argument per se, but we call it heated fellowship.
Fellowship, love it.
People tend to talk over each other, right? We tend to talk over each other, or we tend to there's always one person that talks more, right? Mm-hmm. So it also forces the conversation out of that person who doesn't talk, because they've got the mic. You're going to either stand there for 3 minutes and not say anything, or you're going to really get your point across because you have this moment where you can feel heard. Because that's all it is. The person who doesn't talk much just doesn't feel heard, or doesn't feel like they have the platform to do so they don't say anything. They sit there like a wallflower. So it definitely engages the conversation. So that's a very good thing we like to do when it comes to communication, because that's all marriage is, Meg. Marriage is one conversation, one long conversation.
Lots of waiting.
Checkered by disputes, because even the Bible says you will be offended by this person that loves you, and you got to take it.
Absolutely.
Come on now.
What are your thoughts on how can people keep the fires going for marriage, if they feel like they're in a rut?
I mean, the simplest thing to say is how you say in the beginning, do what you did to get her, to keep her.
Yes.
And that's simply saying, like, whatever you all did when you were dating, keep that going. Mm-hmm. Why does it have to stop?
Yeah.
It only stops because we allow it to. We become stagnant, or we become lazy, just being honest.
Yeah.
Like, we get lazy in love.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being fiery about this love we have.
Mm-hmm. And
then once you get lazy and complacent, it's hard to get out of it, Meg. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get back to something that's special, get back to something that's fiery, because you've allowed this person or you've allowed each other to be lazy so long that it's a habit you have to break. Yeah. But it can be done.
For so many families, they let the kids, they let their family just revolve around the kids, and they don't, it's very easy to let that happen.
When he was talking about lazy love, so you have to actively pursue, and we have date your mate nights. Mm-hmm. I know you guys do that too, because you guys are always having your dates, but we don't miss our date. And it doesn't have to be something that you're spending money on all the time.
I know one of your big emphasis is starting marriage off strong. So what can you say for newlyweds?
Oh, that's our favorite part. We always say, don't get caught up on the wedding day. Get caught up on the marriage, right? A lot of times we've seen people come in and we're saying, do not literally go broke for your wedding day, because that's your first test as a couple, is the way that you keep your finances leading into your marriage. So your wedding day. So really think about those things. Think about what's your long-term plan, what is your midterm plan, and then what is your plan B? Right. Mm-hmm. And so, and then they were like, oh, okay. And then we say, and then what's your plan C? And your plan C is Christ. We're saying, like, every time those things that are happening, are you ready for each one of those stages? Because those things may happen. And so we're really big on couples just understanding and asking questions. I know it sounds simple, but questions are such a powerful arsenal in a newlywed tool belt. It really is. Ask questions, ask good questions, funny questions, mean questions, sad questions, happy. Just ask them, but just make sure you ask and make sure you get answers.
Facts. And I would also say that we like to tell couples that make sure they know that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to go through some things and you're going to grow grow together and learn together, but don't try to just get it all at one time.
Yeah.
For instance, like the big house, the big car, this, that, and the other, trying to keep up with the Joneses versus staying in your lane and running your own race.
Yes.
So make sure you're not focused on that race, not focused on the other side of the fence where that grass is greener, but watering your own grass and running your own race.
Yes. I like that.
That's good. Is there a verse that maybe just means so much to you and that has kind of shaped your heart and home?
Yes, it's Matthew 6:33. Seek the kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you. We say that all the time, and it's our mantra. It's our mantra in our class. But we tell them that seek him first and just watch. Like we're not trying to perform miracles. Our goal is to watch him. He's the miracle worker. We're just able to watch it happen, his majesty happen face to face. And so,
Conell, I'm going to ask you a question. You may or may not have an answer to this, and I just want to see what you have to say.
Come on, man.
Okay, well, it's not marriage related, but is there something special about your name or a name of anyone close to you?
I mean, more or less, I would say the boys, if anything. Fiery one is Aiden, and Ethan is
firm and strong and faithful.
Firm, strong, faithful, and then what is Avery?
It means king power.
Okay, but so Avery hasn't come into his own yet. But even just the first two, it's crazy how a name is so significant because their names like literally are who they are. Like Aiden is our party all the time, fiery one who can make a friend anywhere. Let's be clear. He doesn't need friends because he can do all. He's big and bad by himself.
You're afraid he's going to walk off with strangers every day, but yeah.
Right. He's never made he's never made a stranger that he doesn't know. And he tells me all the time, I'll talk to the cashier at the store and he'll be like, you're over here talking to strangers. I got to keep you safe. But nevertheless, like he is the fiery one. He keeps us going. And our oldest, Ethan, is so analytical and strong-minded and he has an opinion about everything. And he's very good. Like he's a kid, Meg. But I promise you, he can jump in an adult conversation and talk with the best of them. And we gotta check him on that. We tell him to stay out of adult conversations because we let him in sometimes, and he wants to be in all the time. But it's so important. Like a name means so much, and there's like it carries so much weight within them. And even the boys together, like so for Christmas, we have our initials on the stocking. So before we had our youngest son, our name spelled care. So now it still spells care, but it's care. So it's 2 A's.
All right. Okay, last question. So how has the pandemic changed you?
The one thing I think it did really, though, it made us sit back and slow down. Like we would get busy with just doing busy things for no reason. And I still do it sometimes, and Rhonda has to check me. Like, I'll have a free moment, and I'll start trying to clean up or do something. Like, just chill. Just calm down. Just sit by me. You only got to talk. Just hold me. But with the pandemic, like, we made ourselves busy because that's what we have been so used to.
Yeah.
And in essence, if you think about it, in a certain roundabout way, the beginning of the pandemic was an eye-opening form of, like, early retirement. Because you had to slow down. For real. For real. You had to slow down and they kept you at home for a little bit and you really had to find other things to like really do. So it gave you like a little eye opener to what retirement could be. And so how would you become less busy if you didn't have to work? Like what would you do? Because they were still paying you. So that's what it was. That's how I looked at it. So that's when we sat down, we wrote the book. We made sure we spent more time with the boys, got involved in what they were getting involved in because they're getting older, turned around and had a baby. But it slowed us down, but then it sped us up when we had a kid. And our youngest is the best thing we could have ever done. Yeah. We were so scared and worried about, being like 10 years removed and how the world has changed. Yeah. And we come to realize like family was just that much more important to us. Yeah. And even and then you fail to realize how important church was for the fact it closed down. Like our pastor says all the time, they closed the church down before they closed down a liquor store.
Yeah, that's true.
They wanted to make sure you could still go get your wine and beverages, but they said, no, you can't go to church.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's when you really realize how much the church was just in you and how you would go about making the church happen for yourself, whether it be online or whether it be in your home. Like, I don't even think Rhonda, she doesn't reference this a lot, but we had a close group of friends. We actually formed a Bible study for for like, I think like for 2 months, we would like get together for like 2 hours and do Bible study every Sunday because we couldn't go to church and the church hadn't figured out a good way to kind of do the online platform yet. Yeah. So we kind of gave it to ourselves. We had to feed ourselves. And so that's another thing. With the pandemic, you became more resourceful as well.
Yeah. I will say with the pandemic, how did it change us? It was two things. One is initially, you never want anyone to, it was so much loss of life. It really had me just take in like, wow, like, is Lord, like, we're still here, so it's something that you need us to do. Like it's something that's still left, or we have another opportunity to grow. So, when I'm going through things now and as I've gotten older, instead of saying, why is this happening to me, Lord, I go, what are you teaching me? And so what I was learning is that I was putting too much importance on worldly things and material things. And what makes me rich is my family, my husband, my marriage, my children are definitely jewels in my crown. And I thought we were spending enough time with them, but honestly, we weren't, not the way we thought. And so when one day my son said to me, my oldest was just like, Mom, I didn't want the pandemic to happen, but I really now feel like we're getting to know each other better now. Aww. And it was like a double-edged sword. It was like, oh, that's so sweet. Then it was like, you don't think that we know each other? It's like I went back and forth. Like, what do you mean? So I was like, it was just two emotions that it stirred up. So we were baking cakes. Man, we got fat during that time. I'm serious. We ate so much. I gained so much weight during that time, but we were having fun. Like we were cooking dinners. We were making pizza together. We made homemade dough. We did so much stuff as kids and family. And that was one. And then from a marriage perspective, and I promise I'll sum it up because Meg, I could talk to you all day.
I got one more thing to add to.
You do? Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, I can't wait to hear what he's going to say.
No. So we said at the very beginning of it, we even did a podcast on it too, but it was like, I love you, but I don't like you right now. Like that's what was happening like with marriages. And it was happening with us too. Cause I was getting irritated with small things, like the way he was chewing his food. Like all of a sudden I could notice it. And I was just like, you're still chewing it? Like swallow it. Like, are you done? And it's like, we didn't recognize we were annoyed with each other so much. So then we recorded a podcast, and that's still one of our top listened to podcasts. People always go back to that podcast to listen to it. But we learned so much during that time period because people were getting sick of one another. And he's so right when he's talking about early retirement, because we were like, oh Lord, we got to fix something, because if you don't, that's why a lot of couples are having what we call silver splitters, right? It's when the kids are gone and there's nothing there, then they split, when having gray haired divorces, because they don't have anything to hold them together other than the kids. And we don't want that. Amen. We said we don't want that. And we said we even refined our class. We had a class. We even had a prep for marriage class too, that normally it lasts 11 weeks. It lasts 20 weeks in 2020, right? 20 weeks in 2020. And we did all these different things with these couples. And that is our best. Is that not? That is the best survival rates of all of our classes. It's literally 100% survival rate. All those couples got married. All those couples are still together. And it's just, and it was just like, wow, that's amazing, in regards to it. So yes, 2020 made me value the life that God has given me a whole lot more than I did previously.
Amen. Amen to that, Meg. And one last thing, Meg, what it also taught us is that teachers deserve everything they get.
Yes.
I want every teacher in this country to get a raise.
Yes.
And I want them to be taken care of, because having me be this child's teacher for however many months I did it,
no,
I could not. You couldn't pay me enough.
No.
I don't have the patience, and I am thankful for all teachers.
Yes, because they would have failed if it was left to us. We were like, we was like, what? I don't remember. What's new math? I was like, what is this?
I'm just thankful they passed all the kids doing the first part of this pandemic. Yeah, because I don't think we did our kids any justice.
We did not. Oh my God, I'm so glad they made it.
Oh man. And Conell, is there a verse that means a lot to you and your family when you think of how the Lord's led your family?
The one that always hits home with me is, when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing in favor, because I don't think I really recognize that what this favor really was, especially like looking at my parents' marriage. Like, it wasn't the best, but it was such an example of what a marriage could be if really nurtured and grown right. So I definitely think when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing in favor.
I trust today's story encourages you as much as it encourages me. Can't you just hear the joy and the love and the fun in their voice? And, you know, the journey to get there, it involves pain, it involves effort, death. All these things affect so much the foundations of our marriage. And it really spoke to me. And I'm praying for all of us today that we take some time to look at our marriage, to put a little more effort in, to do what we can to more reflect Christ in our day-to-day. As a podcast listener, do you sometimes struggle with where should I listen? Which app on my phone was I at, or where was I? Struggle no more. Letters from Home Podcast has our own app in the Google Play and Apple App Store. And guess what? It's free. Just search Letters from Home Podcast in the search bar in your phone's app store and click download. How about that? Then all of our everyday extraordinary faith stories will be right there in one easy place on your phone, so you don't have to go searching anymore. You can just tap the rainbow icon and encouragement is on the way.
Links from our guests will be in the show notes. For more everyday extraordinary faith stories, go to our website, lettersfromhomepodcast.com, and click subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're listening to.
2 Corinthians 3:3. And you show that you are a letter from Christ, delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts.
Until next time, go in